Welcome back to GTM on the range today with a pair of Maven binoculars. If you have been subscribing or following my channel for a while, this is probably your first look. If you're just on YouTube, go check out my Instagram, as you should. That's where the first peek goes. That's where I send up a lot of information about discount codes, pictures, and companies I'm working with. I'm excited about this one. I've had it for a while. Haven't been able to make a video because of sickness just yet, so I want to give you a first taste, a first look at these Maven C-Series 18x binos. And I did say 18x, that's heavy magnification. A couple things real briefly. I'm going to tell you that this binocular set is really impressive. It's great. I know if somebody heard 18x and they're hearing C-Series, they're like, well, maybe there's a B-Series, maybe there's an A-Series. Are these the worst? Well, no, that's actually incorrect. Nowadays, optics have been improved so greatly that a C-Series, which is really just their mid-tier, that's not actually bottom, that's not low quality, it's their mid-tier. A C-Series optic from Maven right now, a few years back, would have been the best glass and the best quality you could have got, guys. Glass has improved so much. I'm not an expert in these things. I don't manufacture or make things myself, but I have been a student and I'm learning about the way that they do build these products and the improvements they're putting into them. And I'm a really big fan of these Maven binoculars because they're using ED phase corrected glass. And so for a sub $800 pair of 18x binoculars, these are practically high end in my opinion compared to the stuff I've used in the past. This right here is amazing. A couple things about it real quickly. Again, this isn't a review. I'm just giving you a heads up that this is something to be looking for. Comes with a few extras in the box, but really nice neoprene neck lanyard if you're going to carry it around. That's something I do. It does have a clip for quick detach. That way, I like that a lot. Has very, very smooth function. Everything on the barrels here, on the eyepieces, as far as standoff, setting your diopter, your fine tuning here for your image focus. Really nice and smooth, no slop in the dial, good aggressive texture. That's something I care about, especially in winter like right now. My hands get kind of cold. A nice aggressive texture is good, so I can grab a hold of it. In the cold, it was about 14 degrees when I started filming today. It didn't seize up or freeze. None of these things gave me any issues, so I'm very happy with that. I have used it a majority of the time at long range, and so it's an 18x, guys. So what is 18x good for? Further distances, generally. Unless you're bird watching, you know, you're 25 yards away, something like that, then throwing it on a Sunway photo tripod like what I'm using here is really ideal. Maybe using it in a hunting scenario where you have wide open hills, prairie, that kind of thing. If you're on the water, I could see that because you have big wide open areas. This would be a great use for it there. Just generally looking at things that are far away because it's 18x. If you were going to be hunting closer, you're hunting in woods, kind of like what's behind me over here. If you're hunting in closer areas, I suggest an 8 or a 10 or a 12. I personally use a 12, even in heavily wooded areas generally. I like 12s, and they have a bunch of other C-Series binoculars that would be lower magnification. You don't have to go right to 18x. In fact, I was right on the fence between 15 and 18, even using it for long range. My own use, looking at birds at like 25 yards right behind me, an old stump. At 25 yards, it's perfect. It's fantastic. I like, because it's an 18x, I like to throw it on a tripod. These Sunway photo tripods are excellent. I like to throw it on something like that just so I'm steady because it is heavy magnification. And just getting the image of the thing, you know, I kind of look at it and I have my binoculars and then I just quickly bring it up to my eyes. But if you were going to be looking at something that's relatively close, relatively often, and it's going to be changing a lot, you might just consider something with bigger field of view and less magnification. It's not an issue, probably be cheaper at times too, so that's cool. But these have a design and a purpose that I want to talk to. I've mostly used them in long range, looking at animals long ways away, looking at the targets behind me here, a couple hundred yards away, and then 300 yards away. Looking at those targets and spotting, looking at my actual paper as well, this has been a really useful tool. I can definitely see my bullet holes at a couple hundred yards away with 18x. I kind of know what I'm looking for, and I have clean targets, but I can see it just fine with this. Again, ED glass, phase corrected. Nowadays, guys, the glass is just so much higher quality than it used to be. Things that are coming out in the C-Series here, I swear, maybe a decade ago would have been the best that there was, it seems like. There just wasn't that much you could get for under $1,000 that would perform this way. Really happy with that glass image. The trueness of color is important to me. You don't want chromatic aberration and you don't want to lose trueness of color. Those are two things that are really frustrating because even though you're looking through two eyes and you're getting more detail because your image is getting 2. Okay, so your brain can do more with that amount of information, more information in, rather than looking through a scope in one eye. You're looking through both. You're getting more information, but the glass has to meet you there to provide that information. And so I'm seeing lots of detail, really happy with the color trueness. And when I'm looking at shiny targets, this is normally a place where you can tell, like I have lots of sun, I have lots of snow behind me right now. Normally I can tell if there's going to be some chromatic aberration issues on days like today, because I'll look at my target and my target will almost kind of glow. There'll be lighting issues. This has 56 millimeter barrels, by the way, which is fantastic. Less than 8-inch package. But with this optic right here, looking at my colors, I was looking at an orange target, I was looking at a red target, I was looking at a white target, and some blacks. And the black targets are all nice and tight and clear. I don't see any issues there. It's not blurry, not at all. At a few hundred yards, not blurry. It's not getting any of the glow on the colored targets, the targets that were red. I could see nice clear outlines, and then when I would make an impact on the target, this is really important, I could see the edges of my impact, and it wasn't just blurring together. Now I compared that against a different pair of binoculars I've had for many years, sitting around at home, and yeah, it's a huge difference. It's just light years different, and it's the glass quality that's allowing me to get more detail. It's the trueness of the light and the colors. Everything in those prisms just getting focused down to exactly the right spot and then coming out to your eye at the right spot. I guess that's kind of the science behind it. I'm not going to nerd out and go too far into that, but I'm going to tell you I'm really happy with my experience with these so far, doing it that way. In fact, doing a little bit of shooting past 1,000 yards. I was using these for spotting for some friends at 1,000 yards. Worked perfectly with just my eye sitting on a tripod. I could see misses and hits. Even with a 223, I could see a little bit of miss and hits with this 18X. If it was enough snow powder, I could tell. But I was shooting 6.5 Creedmoor at a silhouette, like maybe a full size. I think it was a full size IPSC that day, shooting at a little past 1,000 yards. And I hooked up my phone to the binoculars, and I zoomed in a little bit on my phone too. And I just recorded. I wanted to see what kind of image I would get, and kind of find out, can I use an 18X to spot for me at 1,000 yards on targets and help me make my videos. And here's what I saw. So obviously zooming in on the phone a little bit is going to degrade the image slightly, but it wasn't unusable at all. I was really actually quite happy with the image it was pulling out, especially with the angles of light and what I was getting that day. I was really happy with it. It was very cool. So if you were going to go birding, or you wanted to spot for a friend, or maybe you want to record a hunt and a kill shot, you could totally hook up a, I can't remember the device name that I'm using right now. I'm sorry, I'll try to link that in the future. But you could hook up your phone to your binoculars. You could record your hunt, your shooting, or whatever, and just have a cool memory with that. It's also a nice way to record data when you're shooting long range, because you can actually see what was happening in your shot strings if you record it that way. It's really neat. If you're spotting for yourself, like when I go shoot alone by myself, which happens fairly often, I might want to hook it up that way just to remember exactly what was happening during that shooting process. And was I hitting targets? Was I consistently to the left? All that. I'm getting information back, recording my hunt in a really simple way, and it's very affordable. It's multi-purpose. It's easy to hand this off to somebody else and use it for like NRL 22 this weekend. That's something I'm going to be doing. We'll be using this for NRL 22, and I do know that depth of field starts becoming an issue and I'm looking really, really close, and then I need to go to, let's say 25 yards to 100 yards for transitioning targets, that will be a little trickier just because it is an 18X. But we're going to do it. I'm going to find out how I like that. I don't personally think it'll be too much. I've used heavy magnification. I mean, my own rifle scopes that I'm shooting the matches with go up to 25 or 30 power typically. I'm not too concerned about spotting for my friends using 18X. I think we'll handle it just fine. If you think of it, a lot of times in NRL or NRL 22 competitions, we're using spotting scopes that start off around 15 or 20 power. And so I'm not concerned about using an 18X for something a little closer. I know some guys who are hunting and they're moving around a lot, they have a lot of dynamic transition. They might want to back off so they get a better field of view, and that's totally understandable. Again, you would save money. You'd probably find something more affordable in that C line that is like a 12X or a 10X. I think that'd be great. I just personally like the heavy mag. I've never had something like this before, and it's really scratching an itch I had. I wanted this real bad, and I'm happy with it. Texture is really, really good. It's not going to make any of those sounds at all. It's not going to make kind of a metallic sound, or if it gets wet, it's not going to make the squeegee sound when you're in the woods, when you're holding on to it. When I started filming today, it was 14 degrees. Nothing froze up on me. Diopter adjustment was just fine. The fine focus right here was just fine. Actually, it's really smooth. There's no slop in that dial at all. Really happy with that. I do have an ARCA adapter on here to throw it on the Sunway Photo tripod. That's something I had personally at home. Does not come with the package, but the neoprene neck carry, this has been pretty good. I've only used it a few times because most of the time I'm set up in a place on a tripod, or I'll carry my tripod and the Binos connected, throw it over my shoulder. This is a nice high quality piece with a clip, comes on and off. I like that a lot. Like I said, compact. So the type of prism it has allows for it to be under 8 inches, which is really great, and still maintaining 56 millimeter barrels, which is just huge. It allows for so much. There's a lot of advantages to that I'll talk about in the future. The one thing I'm going to say, if you're checking these out, not to try to dissuade you from buying this, but just to think about which model you're looking at, which the website does a great job in helping with this. I'm just going to say that if you have narrow eyes, if you have a narrow face, like more narrow than me, oh, that's so bright. Okay, put these back on. If you have more narrow eyes, just the design of this in general, it's probably going to be too difficult for you. I think this is great for people who have about my structure, my face, or wider, because of the size of the barrels and the location of the eyepiece. I just don't think a person with really narrow eyes is going to do well with most binoculars. That's not unique to these. I think that's most binoculars across the board. You'll have a little bit of issue, and you're going to want to pay attention to that if you have narrow eyes. But for me, truth be told, I can set it up on the Sunway Photo tripod and walk right up to it and put my face to it. As long as the barrels are together and not separate, as long as the barrels are together, it's perfect for me and my eyes, so I have no complaints with it at all. I'm just trying to think about the fact that younger people, smaller frame people, or people who have more narrow eyes, this would be a little bit tricky for you to use it appropriately, and you're going to want to look at something that's smaller barrels or has eyepieces that come in a little bit just for your design and the way that you're built. But I really like it, guys. I'm happy with it. I do plan to have a full actual review coming out and showing you some of the ways I've been using it the last couple weeks, especially. I've been using it heavily. I've got a few hours on them, but I want more time before I have conclusive thoughts. But if you have questions or experience with Maven products, go ahead and post that down below. I'm very, very happy with them. From everything, from the eyepiece being something I can just put right up, and it's comfortable, it's natural. My standoff distance is appropriate, not having trouble getting in the image. From that end to the texture, the coating, the quality, the build, the actual lightness, I think it's a low weight optic for being 18X. And the covers, being able to come with covers that are really nice, that matters a lot to me, because like I said, I sometimes just fold it up, throw it over my shoulder, and if I'm dragging it through the woods or it gets knocked against something, somebody else tips it over, I just like having covers on it at this point, especially when I throw out my backpack. I'm happy with everything I'm seeing so far, and I don't anticipate finding many issues with it, but if I do, you're going to hear about it in the next review. So stay tuned, or you could go over right now and check out Maven Optics online. They have a lot of products that you maybe haven't heard of yet, and I personally like the orange.